I want to talk to you about emotional adolescence, gentlemen. Um, this is a concept that I first of all heard Doug talk about when I was with him, and it's in some of his training. And I have done my usual, where I take some ideas that Doug has uh, mentioned, created, said, whatever. But I've never seen anything in writing on it. And so this journey is my attempt to try to explain something that I have really seen as I worked with, 60, 70 men in the last, 3 or 4 years. Um, Emotional adolescence. And so stay with me because I'm going to challenge you to grow up beyond your dysfunction. And, um, and so the big idea is this. And you can follow along with me in the document. I will read what I've got and then move on from there. What happens is the time, energy, and commitment spent on the porn attraction and preoccupation during adolescence. Remember, most of you, if we asked you to raise your hand and put it back on the screen, how many of you started looking at porn sometime between 10 and 14? We would be at 80 to 90% at least. There's a few of you on that actually started looking at porn as young as 7 and 8. And some guys, a few maybe started looking at porn at 15, 16. And occasionally, I know one guy in the last 5 years started looking at porn in his 20s when he went off to college. It had never happened before that. But most of the time, it gets locked in those early pubescent years when you're 11, 12, 13, 14. And so the PMO cycle, by the way, PMO cycle we'll talk about, refer to many times, porn, masturbation, orgasm. That's the cycle where we look at porn, we masturbate to the point of orgasm, and that starts the addiction because it's so unbelievably addicting. So we get distracted during these teen years with this high attraction towards the addiction, and we get robbed of this time and opportunity that's usually afforded a young guy to mature himself into responsible, selfless adult living. These men today, regardless of age, are emotionally stunted, somewhat immature, selfish, and maybe have yet even to grow up. They could be 40, 50, 60, and they are stuck on self-pity and making excuses. They fully need to make a conscious choice to move forward beyond emotional adolescence. And think through the following statements. For years, Doug has been famous for boys make excuses and men make plans. That's in his office. And I said that for maybe the first year of me helping men directly. But then I realized that I don't want men just to make plans. You can have plans all on a nice piece of paper and they're on a piece of paper. Big deal. That's just another excuse. Well, I got my plan here. You're not doing it. So that's why I adjusted it a little bit, that boys make excuses and men make changes. Okay, you got it written down. That's important. We'll hold you accountable, but then you start making the changes and doing the work. So the question is, where are you at? What is your level of maturity? What developmental tasks have you yet to master? What is weird is that you may have been lying to yourself for so many years so that right now you may not even be able to see your own selfishness. You may not even be able to realize how emotionally mature you are because you've been lying to yourself that I'm all cool, this is good, or whatever. But porn has created such an impact on you in those formative years. You pulled away from others, you lived in secrecy and shame, you started to develop your sexual views and appetites, and they were fully self-absorbed, one-sided, and on-demand sex. You started to use porn to medicate your own pain instead of working through hurts, rejections, and challenges of your growing up years. You began to deeply objectify women as tools of your trade of self-stimulation. Women are now objects. And through porn use, the instability, insecurity grew in you, the opposite of maturity. Further, what spiritual roots you may have had from family of origin or whatever, and whatever opportunities you could do to deepen your faith in those teen years, they were canceled or nullified by your porn preoccupation. This made you feel unworthy and distant from God. In your heart, you knew this acting out with yourself and thinking of girls in this way wasn't right, even though it was likely never mentioned or discussed in public. Certainly in my day, it wasn't. But I remember, and some of you know my journey. I believe that I'm a full-on lustaholic. I haven't looked at porn online in my life. I have a couple of instances before I was married, where I looked at porn for a couple of days once, and I had pretty strong convictions from my family of origin. So I never have masturbated to porn in my life, but I remember as a young man in my 16, 17 ages, and I would objectify women I would see at high school, and I would think about them at night when I masturbated. And I'll tell you, this is what I thought. I felt that I was the most damnable sinner in the world, that if people knew who I was and that I did this and thought this way, that they would completely reject me. And the other one that I really thought that God hated me so much for doing this, that this is what I thought, honestly. And I was 16, walking to my high school in Saskatoon. I figured that God would send a train come careening off the track, and there was no train near my house by 5 miles. That God was going to send a train off the track, come down my street, and just run me over because I was this damnable sinner, that God would just want to crush me if I could. I just remember carrying that shame and that guilt with the practice of masturbation, objectifying women that I would see, at my high school. And so the result of this is that there's a stuntedness relationally, possibly dwarfed emotionally, and certainly undeveloped spiritually, with the juvenile, childish approach to life, and thus stagnated in your process to mature in life. And this is what we call emotional adolescence. Interesting, the Bible actually speaks of this condition and the need to mature in life. From 1 Corinthians 13, verse 11, we read this. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child, and I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. That's the need to grow beyond emotional adolescence. Now, this document I've been sitting on for many months, just saying I got to finish this sometime. I just decided this week this was the time, and so this will be one of my standard documents that men will get when they come in recovery with me. So you're going to help me out, because the second page, which is called Signs of Emotional Adolescence, is still in development. And you're going to be able to help me with ideas that come up. And to be honest, there's some redundancy still, which means repeated ideas, or it's really too close ideas. And so I'm up to 50, but there is some overlap. And so I'll be working on that. But so here's the instructions. I want you to honestly assess how many times these indicators of being emotionally stunted have been true of you as you look back to when you started to come out of the addictive fog. And some of you are still showing signs of this. But don't kid yourself. The more of these indicators are present, the more your thoughts, attitudes, words, and actions reflect an immature 14-year-old. Let's take steps into genuine manhood. Men make men. So you're going to start saying things like, and I do this, I think that's the adolescent speaking, because you're making these excuses, or this is so hard, or whatever, right? Yeah, so this is what's behind it. Now, again, the note says this. This list is still in the process of development. Help me out with any missed attitudes or actions, and what you've seen to be true in your life as indicators of even your own emotional adolescence. So these are not comprehensive yet, and there's some overlap, but I'm going to read these through, and you start thinking, do I do that? Do I do that? Do I do that? Do I do that? And just kind of keep score and see where we go with this. So here's some of the signs of emotional adolescence. Excuses. Trying to create a justifiable reason for any mishap or shortcoming. Minimization of the damage you've caused. You simply don't grasp the magnitude of the hurt you're causing. Selfishness. Fully self-absorbed. Life is all about me. Proud. Unwilling to humble yourself. 5. Self-regulation is low. Little self-control. Matter of fact, some people actually say to me, listen, you don't understand how hard this, I just feel helpless to this addiction. I can't stop. It's different for me with other people. They say things like that. And so, they're living a lie, because it's not true. It feels like it. There's no deferred gratification. They feel they deserve the break now. They need an instant fix. They can't wait. Defer is waiting. Manipulation. They think they're smarter, so they try to explain away what is their problem. They hide or downplay mistakes. They're great at half-truths and massaging the story to avoid any sense of responsibility or guilt. They have low pain tolerance. Oh, this is too much. I can't bear this. This pain is excruciating, as they're trying to deal with their addiction, of course, minimizing the hurt that they've caused other people. They have tears, they have emotional breakdowns, but it's more about their pain, certainly not about remorse and the damage they've caused. Um, it's all about his pleasure, his release, his contentment. That's what's king. His needs are first. They are impulsive, reactionary. Um, then they say, well, I couldn't stop myself instead of I didn't stop myself. Oh, by the way, just a little pause here. If you're getting defensive by just listening to these things, I wonder what level of maturity is that. We're just reading a list, guys, and you're asking yourself how close is this to where you're at? And so, let's keep going. Be brave. If you can own it, own it. If you can't, let it go. He bases decisions on feelings, not at what he values. Frankly, he loves his addiction more than he does his spouse or his future spouse, for single men here this morning. Defiance. Refuses to be controlled. No one can tell me what to do. I can't be coached, can't be corrected. Moody, up and down emotionally. Just like we say, oh, they're going through puberty, meaning they're all over the map, right? Lots of highs and lows. Entitlement. I deserve this. I have a right to this. I shouldn't have to suffer or restrain myself. That's a lot of self-talk going on. Comparison to others. Well, how come they and why can't I? And this poor me thinking is pervasive for the emotional adolescent. 18, no empathy. They're not very good at seeing the hurts they've caused in others. No persistence. If it gets hard and it's too much work, they're gone. They bail. Matter of fact, there's guys that have quit coming to regroup because I just can't get up at 6:30 in the morning. Like, well, it's just not who I am. I'm not an early morning guy. All right. Yeah, they avoid taking responsibilities for their mistakes. They don't own things. They're defensive and reactionary when criticized. They refuse to see their mistakes. 22, they're impatient with people's delay in forgiving them. They say, well, I've apologized. What more does she want? Like, really? I mean, okay, so there's a lot of that. Matter of fact, they're pretty good at bold-faced lying to cover their wrong behavior. Matter of fact, we found that most men struggling with some version of porn or sexual addiction are also addicted to lying as well. They blame others. They project their guilt to other people. They often even blame their spouse. Well, I wouldn't have this problem if you wouldn't this or that. And, they're having some gap sexually. So what do you expect me to do? And then they just throw it all on, the wife. It's all her problem. Number 5, whining. Matter of fact, I almost put in there, it even sounds whiny. But whining about pain, even with a whiny voice, it's too hard. I can't do this. This is an interesting one. Exclusive trials. Listen, my situation is different, Dave. You don't understand. I got 3 guys just flashed into my mind. Not on the call right now, unfortunately. But Dave, if you understood the problem I have with this, you'd realize that my struggle is really different than other people. My problem is worse. And if you only knew how hard this is, I mean, you'd understand why I relapse, like Dave, if you just knew, right? Number to be 27, emotional outbursts, fits of rage, angry reaction. They hate the fact they've been caught. And so some men coming out of this addiction all of a sudden become angry and everything because they don't like the fact that this is public. They don't like having to deal with this. And so they get into explosiveness. Clear defecting to others, projecting blame to parents, siblings, or others as to, well, what do you expect? I found this, in my dad's computer, and so I'm a young guy. I'm just assuming that that's, and I mean, well, my dad and my dad and my dad, and all right. Procrastination, they don't follow through. Any last minute efforts that they don't have time for, so they say, well, listen, I just ran out of time. We don't say, oh, I only started at 15 minutes before I was supposed to have it done for you, but we got, well, I just ran out of time. And so, 30, lying to self. They make up their own version of truth. It's a self-delusion. They believe their own story. And 31 on, I haven't tweaked these much, so you see the yellow there, but lack of follow through on commitments, delay in doing their work, promises that don't come through or follow through, lack of effort, or they overestimate their effort. Well, I want you to know I did this week. And I look at it and say, well, that's a baby step at best. But for them, it's like, I just jumped across the Grand Canyon, Dave, this week. Yeah, overestimated what you've done. This adolescent needs accolades and encouragement to keep going. Every little step needs to be, oh, you did so good. The adolescent goes, oh, I'm so wonderful. I took this baby step. I'm amazing. I'm amazing. That's the adolescent speaking, right? They just need someone to be going cheerleaders, pom pom, and all that. Low willpower. They need constant propping up. Feels the word should be celebrating with their very basic steps, kind of like one a couple ago. They overvalue any change that they've made. Now, to them, it's a really big change, but for the outsider, we're going, oh, okay. Yeah, that's good. But they're seeing it, of course, massive. Interesting. Adolescents give up early and give up easily. They don't push through hard times. If it gets tough, they bail. It's not my fault, the victim mentality. They're not very self-aware. They don't often see the things that they're doing to hurt others. Blind spots are huge. They rationalize their way to justify their choices. They don't make apologies. They don't ask for forgiveness or say I'm sorry. Or they over-aggrandize their apologies with tears and everything, but really don't make any changes. But they kind of had a catharsis. They felt better because they said they were sorry, but they're not making any changes, and they're certainly not putting in any work. They pout and feel sorry for themselves. They need affirmation, applause to make any changes. Talk is cheap with big speeches and seeming remorse with no changes. They underestimate the damage they've caused, and you can see the redundancy here. I got to clean up this list. And they're surprised why others don't just forgive and forget. Like, for crying out loud, I've apologized. Why can't you just forgive and forget? They can't work through pain. Their pain is the worst. No one understands how hard it is for them. And it's so hard. I can't do this. It's too much. What do they expect of me? Well, gentlemen, it's very possible that 5 of you might not be on the call next week because I hurt your feelings. Well, men make men. And my line to you is that I want to call you to greatness. I want to help you beyond this. You've had enough time making excuses. You've had enough time justifying. You've had enough time minimizing. You've had enough time harboring these secrets and feeling lousy. And I just want to help you. And you say, oh my goodness, I'm not like that at all. Good. The point is not to celebrate how many of those 40 you have. The point is, some of you have been on the journey for, maybe 2 years. They're saying, oh, I used to do that one. I used to do that one too. Gee, I hope I'm not like that anymore. And so understand that when we say things like, I don't know, but is that the adolescent speaking? That's your chance to just say, oh yeah, I am making excuses, aren't I? Or I am minimizing, aren't I? Or I'm not taking responsibility, aren't I? And we say, yeah, I think so. I think so. So there's some of you in the room who I've worked a longer time with, and I can think of about 5 of you. I've said to you, now that's the adolescent speaking. Don't kid yourself. You're making excuses. Or yeah, I know it's not your fault, right? Thank you, adolescent. And you see, and remember, it's easier for someone else to see your emotional adolescent tendencies sometimes than for you to see yourself. And so this is an opportunity to do some self-reflection. It's an opportunity for you to massage this concept of emotional adolescence and see where you are in your journey to recovery. And that passage in 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I thought like a child. I act like a child. I reasoned like a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. That's my challenge for you. In Jesus' name, I call you to greatness. Let's talk about this.